Hello, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I am Kellie de Leon with Treasure Data, and we are partnering with CDO Magazine, MIT CDO IQ, and the International Society of Chief Data Officers in a series of interviews. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Heather Dawe, UK Head of Data at UST. Thank you, Heather, for joining us.
No problem at all. It's fantastic to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Let's talk a little bit more about artificial intelligence and machine learning. These are, these big, almost buzzwords in a way. And there's so much promise around the potential of AI and machine learning. But sometimes that can also get a little bit overinflated when things kind of become in vogue. I'd love your take on, do you see that there are certain types of challenges that are best solved with AI and machine learning versus maybe sometimes where AI and ML are not the right approach? Do you see what are the right challenges we should be taking on?
I think that's a really good question. I think it's kind of multifaceted. There are definitely times where an approach, automation of sort of repetitive tasks and such like, that's crying out much of the time for using machine learning and AI. I think humans, we have very sophisticated brains that AI currently is nowhere near, and we people say artificial intelligence, it is intelligent, and it does, artificial intelligence can save a lot of time and do a lot of good things. And, in the sense of it can be more consistently make the right decision at times, that can be a very positive thing. But at the same time, AI doesn't really understand nuance and sophisticated argument yet. So, we're still on a journey with that. So I suppose, in my experience, and this is in a number of varied ways, I've worked in healthcare for a long time, and I've worked with cardiac surgeons and combined their expert knowledge with some really quite advanced analytics. And when you put those two things together, in my opinion, that's sort of augmented intelligence, if you like. That's where you can find some of the most currently the most sophisticated and advanced uses of artificial intelligence. But, fundamentally at the moment, we're still at quite a relatively basic points with AI. We were told a few years ago that we'd have self-driving cars driving all over the place at the moment. That's not happened yet. It will do in the future, but we're still a while away from that. And we're learning why we're a while away from that at the moment.
Mm-hmm. That perspective of the combination of the power of using AI to augment, our own much more nuanced brains, but to use the things that can come from speed and scale and repetitiveness and all of those kinds of things. It is powerful to think about how to combine the two. Yeah. I think sometimes it can feel like either it's going to be AI or it's not. And I think that's a really great perspective that you shared about the nuance of that, for sure. Kind of tied to that, actually, I'm curious if you've observed, any disconnects or misunderstandings in how, business leaders that aren't data scientists, that aren't as deep into this as you are, how business leaders, maybe in finance or marketing or that sort of thing, how they understand and view AI and ML versus your understanding. Have you observed any disconnects, and how do you help work with
Sure.
the folks that aren't data scientists to help bring them along?
I think probably one of the most common ones is a perception that AI can do anything. So if there's a problem and it needs solving, we'll build some AI to do it. That's probably a bit unfair, but it does happen a reasonable amount, because for AI to be effective, there needs to be robust data sources that underpins the analytics that form the AI, the machine learning models and such like that form the AI. So that needs to be in place. And that comes back really to the data management processes we were talking about earlier. So that needs to be in place. And also, sometimes we might have the data, but we might not be able to solve the problem using machine learning. So, it's not a silver bullet in that sense. It can... I might sound entirely negative, but those are a lot of the time the challenges we encounter is perception of what AI can do. I mean, a lot of that comes down to data literacy within organizations, and growing that within an organization can really help, because there are some incredible things that AI can do currently, and it's kind of the a lot of enterprises are in this position where their best options at the moment to go for the easier solutions with AI, and to get those completed. You'll often gain the most benefit from those, and then go for the hard problems after that, and from which you'll gain benefit, but you'll get a faster return on the quick wins. So hopefully I've answered the question there. It's sort of helping.
Absolutely, and it actually is kind of a good segue. You touched on it a little bit, but it's a segue into kind of what I wanted to ask you next. Again, in your role, I think you have such a great perspective of, probably different organizations and how they're leveraging AI and machine learning. And as you've touched on, there's so many possible ways to use it, kind of the low-hanging fruit ways, advanced ways. And, you can think about how you might use it beginning all the way back at things like data sourcing and data engineering and the modeling itself, as well as sort of, how are we operationalizing this and getting it into the business? There's so many facets to think about how AI can impact a business. Is there one you kind of touched on, maybe where to start and kind of get those low-hanging fruit that are driving value to the business? On the flip side of that, is there a particular area that you think represents the biggest challenge or the biggest hurdle that companies want to be addressing, but it's that sticky one that's kind of the hardest to get after?
I think it's I don't think it's technology at all. I think it's the cultural changes that are required within an organization for them to become truly data driven, and really, because I think that the CDO role is a very promising one, and one where the key role is to be a data evangelist. Thing is all around us. How much time a day do most of us spend looking at our phones, and there's so much AI obviously within a phone that it's kind of untrue these days. We think back to 10, 15 years ago where that was. So AI is all around us, and yet within enterprises it's actually quite hard to, unless you get the cultural change of the real sort of, yes, we can do all these things with our data. It's very challenging to make those changes, and part of that it comes from it. I think it comes. It's we're very a lot of the sort of attitude towards data within business is about reporting in KPIs, and a lot of large businesses have huge amounts of reports and huge amounts of KPIs, and they aren't always consistent, this, that, and the other. But that's what people look at data as. Okay, reporting and KPIs. Yes, it's very important to report well, I mean, it's bottom line, isn't it? It's very important to report effectively and to get your KPIs managed and correct. But actually, what else can you do with your data beyond that? You can, use it to generate machine learning models, AI, and other things as well. And it's sort of a hearts and minds things. I think that's the biggest challenge of, yes, we need to get our reporting right. And that is the bread and butter. The thing is, you get your reporting right, your data's in a really good shape to develop AI with. But, if you've got too hard a focus on that, you're going to find it hard to get your organization as a culture to shift to being digital and to being transformed by that, using their data.
Mm-hmm. It is. So, it's easy to think that data is all about the numbers and the reporting and the facts, but it is, as you said, hearts and minds there's a lot involved in that around the organization.
I think any good CDO out there will know how to put together the technology and the teams to make those changes. The key challenge is in changing the helping to change, leading the data, the directional change of the organization.
Mm-hmm. Wow. On that thread, there's a lot of talk of the promise of AI and machine learning. There's also risk, in AI and machine learning. And I wonder if you could just talk about some of the risks that you think businesses really need to think through and be aware of as they are trying to advance their use of AI and machine learning.
I think I could get really, I could go deep here quite quickly. I mean, but there are quite a lot. That's one of the things about machine learning and AI, there are quite a lot of things to be aware of when it comes to developing models and putting them live, in terms of ensuring that they're ethical, safe, and fit for purpose. If we live in a biased society, unfortunately, that's how it is. So when we capture data about society, that data itself will be biased, it will be racist, it will be sexist, it will, it'll be all kinds of prejudices within it, unfortunately. So that data gets used to synthesize machine learning models. They're going to carry bias too. When we see it in social media, occasionally one of the large social media platforms appears racist. It's not the AI that's racist, really. It's the data that's in. It's being pulled through, and so that awareness of the impact of bias, that's a key thing, and the sort of knowledge of how you can ensure that the AI you develop is fair and fit for purpose. I think that's one of the most important. But I think it goes without saying that's probably the most important thing when it comes to developing AI. Particularly, well, things you don't really want to recommend the wrong thing to someone, as in a retail product. It could upset them, or it could really upset them. Obviously, with healthcare, it's different in the sense you don't want to do the wrong thing to the wrong patient. Right. So that all comes down to regulation, of course, as well.
Mm-hmm. It's so much. There's so much vast opportunity, but it's stepping into each of those next layers of what we can achieve, but thinking through what's the flip side of that, and how do we make sure we're doing it in a responsible way.
And without getting too technical, like I say, I'm a data scientist at heart, so I can really go for it here. There are methods and means of measuring and ensuring that the AI developed is, like I say, fair, ethical, and fit for purpose, and safe. But it's ensuring those approaches are taken and used.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I have learned so much from our conversation today and enjoyed it so much. So thank you, Heather, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
I've really enjoyed it too. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews.